I mean, there's a lot of issues facing Canadians that haven't been resolved, related to things like affordability, housing. And these are issues that I think were really benefiting the Conservatives before the assimilation threat.
Mm-hmm.
And there are issues that should have benefited the NDP party, but the NDP, for whatever reason, even before we saw this more recent resurgence in Liberal fortunes, they just were struggling to kind of capitalize on these issues, which is was a bit of a surprise to me. But since now we've had this sort of assimilation threat, I think the biggest change we've seen is this sort of resurgence of Canadian patriotism, which we're seeing across the country, including in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And that is becoming a huge liability for anyone with kind of separatist agendas. So it's hurting the bloc in Quebec for sure. And I think it's also making some of the rhetoric coming out of Western Canada, and it's making leaders like, or affiliations with people like Danielle Smith a bit of a liability for the Conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
Because, nobody wants to, so for those of you who haven't been paying attention, Danielle Smith is the Premier of Alberta, and she has kind of come up with this wish list of demands for the federal government, including some things that are unrelated to tariffs. So she wants to take Albertan oil off the negotiating table,
Mm-hmm.
but then she also has some things related to single-use plastics and so on. And she has sort of said that if the federal government doesn't come into line on these issues, there's going to be a national unity crisis. And I think this kind of rhetoric is a bit tone deaf at a moment of Canadian sort of patriotic fervor.
Mm.
And because Poilievre has sort of said that Smith is, quote unquote reasonable, and he's sort of cozied up to her, I think it's going to be a bit of a liability to sort of try and wrap himself in the Canadian flag while also being friendly with people who are threatening to tear the country apart, essentially.